Hello, and welcome to the O&M Stockroom. We are your hosts, Ken O'Malley.
And Brian McGarry.
Tonight is episode number 29 of Complimentary Cinema. If you're new to the channel, Complimentary Cinema is a program where we review and discuss films that you can watch for free that are available on YouTube. Please be warned that we discuss these films in detail, so consider this a full spoiler alert. So,
it was your turn to pick. And what did we pick tonight, Ken?
we picked the movie from 2010 called Frozen, not to be confused with the animated children's movie by the same name.
I literally cracked up when I saw the title.
Yeah.
But apparently this predates the Disney Frozen.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised in hindsight that I guess this wasn't well established enough.
It must not have been. No, it looks like it was made on a shoestring budget.
So this movie is by director and writer Adam Green, who apparently is, he based a lot of the stuff on this on people that he knew and kind of the town he grew up in, even though it's not really related. He just used all the names of all of his favorite people and places. And then it also stars Emma Bell, Shawn Ashmore, and Kevin Zegers. Those are the main three people we spend the most time with. There's also a couple other side characters. One is Ed Ackerman as Jason, and Ryla Vanderbilt as Shannon, and Kane Hodder as Cody.
That's our basic cast of characters there.
I should have mentioned that the main characters' names are Parker, Joe, and Dan.
Fantastic.
Yep, that's the three people that we care about. So what do we typically look for when we are watching a movie?
Boy, Ken, am I really glad you asked. We have...
No, that's staying in.
Boy, Ken, am I really glad that you asked. We actually have three primary criteria that we judge the merits of each film by. So firstly, is it well written? Is it well acted? And is it well produced?
And is that what happened today? Well, I guess we'll find out.
We'll have to just find out through the course of this discussion. So a little quick plot synopsis here in summary. So essentially we have three college jerks who are trying to do a little ski trip for the weekend, and they're all cheap asses. So instead of just buying regular tickets, they're college students, so it's allegedly poor or whatever. They're not dressed like it, but that's beside the point. They decide instead that they're going to bribe the lift operator, the ski lift operator, for them to get onto the to the mountain, and make a few runs. And Parker is a young lady who's dating Dan, who's kind of a dick, and his best friend is Dan, who's also kind of a dick.
Yeah.
No, wait.
No, the other one. Joe.
So Parker is dating Dan,
Yeah.
and Dan is in another relationship with his best friend named Joe.
Correct.
And it's kind of a very odd love triangle. There's a lot of tension there.
It's one of those, the friend is jealous of the new girlfriend. I mean, relatively new.
They make it seem like they just started dating, and then you find out later on they've been together for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd call a year a good while, especially in college. So anyway, they go up and down the hill a few times, and because Parker is really just a novice, she can't do the big runs with the big kids. And best friend Joe kind of resents Parker for that.
Mm-hmm.
So they decide they're going to go for one last late night run. And right as they go up to the ski lift operator, and he's like, no, we got to close. The weather's getting bad. And they're like, come on, man, we gave you, however many dollars. It's like, all right. So he lets him go on, and ski lift operator guy gets distracted. He gets called away, basically. And another ski lift dipshit replaces him. And they end up getting stranded up there.
Yep.
And at first, it's not such a big deal. They're like, kind of making fun of it a little bit. And then the lights turn off.
Yeah.
And then they realize they are royally screwed.
And not only has the operator gone home, but now the person at the top of the hill has left. The whoever person that was in like a kind of like a little, what's it called? Like a groomer, a snow machine of some kind.
Yeah.
He's leaving, and it's looking really bad for them because the real trouble is that this is a Sunday, and the ski slope is only open on the weekend, so no one's even going to come back until 5 days later.
That's a hell of a pickle to be stuck in, isn't it?
It is. That is what we call a problematic situation.
Very problematic. And it's also, as you can imagine, cold.
Yes.
That's kind of hinted at by the title of the film, and also the fact that they're up on a ski slope.
Yes. There's snow everywhere.
There is snow, and it snows intermittently throughout this film. And so let's see. So early on, after they, we spent a lot of time in the ski lift chair watching these people talk. And they talk about some of their, favorite breakfast cereals and Christmas gifts. And then eventually they realize when the snow groomer comes and goes and doesn't see them that, okay, they're really in for it and they got to get out of there. So Dan, decides, okay, I'm gonna make a jump for it and try and get out of here. And he does, and he takes a very straight-legged jump and breaks both of his legs.
Yeah. They snap like just twigs up from a tree.
And I have to say, the crunching sound was some of the best sound editing. That was great. That was anyway. So he's down there below them, both legs broken. He's having a very bad time. They're freaking out up there. And it's not long until some wolves come along, Ken. And the wolves decide to eat Dan.
Yeah.
In a very grisly fashion. That now leaves two stupid jerks up in the ski lift.
Mm-hmm.
Parker and Joe, for those keeping track at home. And after another day and night of them just kind of sitting there and being angry with each other, finally Joe decides, all right, I'm really going to try to climb over the steel cable to try to get to the nearest pole so that you can climb down and ostensibly get help. Which he then goes and does, only except he ends up being intercepted by, you guessed it, more wolves.
Yeah. Same wolf from earlier.
And eventually, the ski lift detaches and falls, and in such a way that Parker is able to get to the ground and then crawl to safety, and is eventually found at the edge of a road. And that's essentially your film.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this film a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So my first impression of this film, I would say, was not good. We started with our three main characters just talking at the bottom of a ski lift about whatever random stuff, how they're going to scheme their way up the mountain. And I was already like, okay, this is the level of writing we're going to have.
The opening scene absolutely did not pull you in.
Like the bar was set, and it was a disappointing level that we were never going to get above.
I certainly understand, needing to build things up, and setting a tone, and you just immediately just hated all three of them on sight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just knowing from the very basic little thing that we read about the movie before we started watching it, that basically it's a type of disaster film, you immediately are just rooting for them to get stuck up on that ski lift and get boned, because they have those kinds of punchable faces and punchable voices and punchable speech, if there were such a thing.
Yeah.
To be fair, Parker being the least of those three.
Correct.
She was the most charming of the three.
So I think maybe a little bit of my problem with it too is I feel like they could have built up the tension a little bit more on their first ride up. Like they did a little bit. They first ski lift ride they take up, they get stopped. And, there's a little bit of that foreshadowing. And they, the one guy just rocking it and being a jerk, and it's creaking and all that kind of stuff. And that, that starts getting your mind going because that's where we're headed eventually. But I feel like they could have maybe, I don't know.
I feel like that whole scene was completely extraneous.
All that whole beginning part was really not very good.
Yeah, there was never any need to have them scheme to get up there. They could have, because how? Okay, so just skip ahead just a little bit. So how they get stuck up there is they convince the ski lift guy to let them up, right?
Yeah.
And then he gets pulled away to go talk to his manager. The guy covering for him, he says, "Hey, there's still 3 more people up there."
Right.
And then he runs off. Well, 3 snowboarders come down who are not them.
Right.
So the other guy who took over has no idea that they're up there.
Yeah, he doesn't know those were the wrong people.
So these guys being shysters and just kind of scheming their way onto the ski lift in the first place is completely unnecessary to the story. All it does is serve to not make you like them.
Yeah, they definitely didn't know how to write a likable character.
They really didn't. I mean, you grew to like them a little bit as time went on, but when you're starting from not liking them at all,
Yeah.
it's...
Like, there's a way to make that, like, what they were trying to do charming, or like, more humorous or lighthearted, I think.
Yeah, they could have. And that's what they were going for. They
Yeah.
were going for, like, that lighthearted, those scrappy college kids, what'll they do next?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. And it didn't play off that well. And you just end up not liking them, and you just kind of feel like they're jerks. And you feel bad for the ski lift operator, putting his job on the line to let these assholes go up and not pay and they end up paying $100
Yeah.
for the 3 of them to go up the ski lift on the. I don't know what it costs to go skiing, Ken.
It's a lot.
Is it?
It's a lot.
Do you have any idea like what a ballpark number would be?
I
Just
don't.
off the top of your head?
It's
I don't know.
Probably more than that per person, though. Or maybe a little less than that.
I really don't know. I've never been skiing. I never will ski. Not something that appeals to me per se.
Mm-hmm.
But I would think if you're going to cough up $100, you couldn't just scrounge a little more and just do it the right way.
Right.
And maybe, I don't know. But you wouldn't have the movie, I guess.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, numbers I'm seeing, like, I don't know, $89 a person. So that's...
Okay. Well, this is also 2010 money, too.
That's true. Money's a little different. They were getting all-day passes, theoretically. Because they went several times. So, yeah. They're still getting a good deal at 100, but they really wanted to only pay 75 or 50.
Isn't it like $100 to go to Disney for a person?
Yeah, something like that.
So essentially, to just ski down a mountain, you're basically paying Disney prices.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing though. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's the same idea as Disney. You get on the mountain and then they got you by the balls because they're just gonna ring you for every dollar all around that mountain.
Okay, that's fair.
But
So the whole setup just sucks. You got these shystery kids.
If we liked the people, it would have been more effective.
It would have been. You would have felt a little more for them later on, as the misfortune happens. As it is, you're just kind of rooting for the misfortune at first, which is not necessarily. Maybe that's not what the writer wanted, or maybe it is.
Yeah,
I would assume not.
I think they thought it came across a little more charming than it really was.
The writer/director's probably also a jerk too.
It's possible,
and that's probably his idea of what a charming, likable person is like, perhaps.
So anyway, that's the groundwork for the film. Kind of everything that happens else in the beginning is really not. It doesn't really have a point.
It's not important at all. They meet. Joe meets a girl that is having trouble with her snowboard, and her ex-boyfriend gets jealous and shoves him, and that doesn't matter because it never plays into the story again.
The only thing that does is that then he can daydream about her when they're stuck up on the snow lift. Like he has something to go back to. Or like, if I get off this ski lift, I'm going to marry that girl.
I'm going to ask her to marry me, even though I just met her.
So it just serves to give him like a fantasy. It's kind of a joke too that he doesn't have a girlfriend because, he can't keep one, or he gets hurt too easily.
He later referred to himself as a sensitive bitch.
Yeah.
And I think there's some truth to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then let's see, Dan, played by Kevin Zegers. Yeah, he. What did you say he was? He was the budget.
He was the budget Zac Efron.
The budget Zac Efron. He does look like a less expensive version of Zac Efron.
I mean, he looks like the dollar store version because Zac Efron is like an amazing looking human being, but
So
he wasn't
like
terrible. He just
like if you made like a 5th or 6th generation clone of Zac Efron, it would be this guy.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's still a little charm there.
Yeah, he did look vaguely familiar, but because he looks like somebody else.
Right. He looks like, leading movie guy.
Yeah, yeah, but he looks like community theater in a small town leading guy.
Yeah.
That's him.
Yeah.
That's this guy. And he his big credit that we saw, he was in the Dawn of the Dead remake from 2004. He played Terry, who, if I recall, was one of the mall security guys. That's pretty fancy. And then Sean Ashmore, who played Joe Lynch. He was in some of the X-Men movies as Iceman. And then Emma Bell. God, what else was she in?
She was in something. It was
She was in Dawn not Dawn of the Dead, Walking Dead.
Yeah, Walking Dead and some other kind of horror movie.
I could have sworn.
It was something.
Hold on.
Final Destination, that was the one.
Yeah, she was in Final
the fifth
Destination
one.
5. But I just realized now she also reminds me of the she reminds me of the leading lady in Dawn of the Dead from 2004. According to this, she was not in it, but
Right.
that's who she was reminding me of, because I certainly don't remember her from anything else. But short version is, these guys have worked in other productions.
Yeah.
They're all professional actors. They do a decent job, but you just don't care about the characters, and that's
It's not their fault that they weren't written to be likable. They were because of the things that happened to them. Eventually, you felt something for them anyway. But it could have been a lot better if we had started off on a different foot with them.
we really should have. Because once they're up in the ski lift, and once the lights go out, and once Dan jumps down and breaks his legs, the practical effect on that was interesting. It's like broomsticks were sticking out of his pants where his knees should be, and that was kind of a silly looking effect.
They did their best.
I mean, they did. Did they though?
I think they did.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
I mean, the effects weren't terrible. That one definitely stood out as being a little, I don't know. We just couldn't determine whether that was
Well, they kept
realistic.
they kept flashing back to the same angle of his viewpoint of looking at his legs and them kind of twitching. They showed us that like 3 times.
They were trying to go for like a body horror kind of,
They did, and it wasn't quite gelling at that point.
Yeah.
But his reaction was pretty believable.
They did better in other parts. That part was definitely the weakest, I think. Like, let's talk about the other effects.
Let's talk about the other effects
while we're on this subject.
Oh man.
So there's a number of cold-related problems that happen.
So one that gave me the absolute heebie-jeebies is on the second day, Parker wakes up and she had lost one of her gloves the night before when she was trying to light a cigarette. So she's had a gloveless hand all night. And she wakes up and it's stuck to the safety bar of the lift. And there's this whole scene where she's trying to pull it up off of the bar, and eventually she has to like really rip it off, and it leaves skin behind. And oh my God, oof. Big mood. Did not like. It was very well done though.
It was very effective.
That was very effective and absolutely grossed me out.
Yeah.
The way that she played it too, that was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the best scenes in the whole film, I think.
Yeah. See, the other thing is like she had the skin on her face.
Yeah. Oh,
She
yes.
itched that a couple times
Yes.
and then it came off.
Ah.
I was expecting almost. I could see why they didn't do it because you have to have your your actress person, like the pretty person, like they just give her like this little patch on her face. I was waiting for someone's nose to get frozen off.
Yeah, me too.
Because that would have been more realistic.
They really should have had more frostbite with how long they were up there for.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe they weren't really covering up their faces, but I guess it's
movie.
hard to film a movie when you can't see anybody.
Yeah, it was a stylistic choice.
Yeah, but I mean, the way that they wake up though with their faces still exposed, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there are little changes I might have made for the sake of realism. So the first time that Joe, the other bland guy, tries to climb out of the ski lift and climb the cable to the nearest pole to climb down, he only gets a couple of feet, and then he realizes the steel cable's cutting into his gloves, making his hands bleed. And he also realizes that the wolves are about to eat his best friend. That's not really a fun situation to be in. And it's not till the next day or so when he really gets desperate that he tries to make another go for it. And he does make it, and
he just really eats his hands up.
It really eats his hands up, and that's pretty disgusting. And he ends up, fighting off the wolves with a ski stick, and he grabs a snowboard and starts scooching away with the wolves chasing him, and you think, hey, he might get it. This is leading to the other effect coming up. When Parker finally gets to the ground and makes her way there, she ends up finding his body being devoured by wolves. And I actually had to really kind of tilt my head and look at that body prop they did. That was actually really well done.
Yeah.
Just a big hunk of like bloodied flesh with some parts still recognizable as, a proper human.
So yeah, I think all of those effects were effective in their own way. The leg one was the weakest as far as when we were just staring at it, but it was great right when it happened.
Like I said,
if they would have kept it more out of focus, I think it would have been better.
The crunch was great. And also when the wolves gather around to eat him, and you hear all the sounds and noise of all that, but they don't show you anything. That was great too, because your imagination does fill in a lot. Mm-hmm. And the reactions of those actors, hearing their friend and boyfriend die.
Yeah, just crunching and screaming.
Oh man,
gurgling.
That was pretty intense. So certainly there were parts of that were good. So let's talk about some of the things that really didn't work in this film. You pointed this out at least a couple of times, but the cinematography is a problem in this film.
Yeah. So what happened was they filmed this movie, especially the part with just the three people, on an actual ski lift, actually up in the air. So all the parts where they're up there just hanging out talking, they're literally one or two camera guys up there dangling, filming them. So you didn't have great cinematography. And I said I wanted to murder the DP for this movie because there's some times where it would be, shooting one person's face and then trying to slowly drift over when the other person started talking, but then the first person started talking again. And like no one's face was really in focus. And it was just like, I understand afterwards why that happened, but they still just should not have done it that way. They should have got a couple cameras up there, two or three cameras. And even if someone wasn't just like actively moving it, it had some kind of rig where it was just stationary on them. It wasn't all the time, but when it happened,
it was the kind of thing that once you notice it, it's all you can see. And every time there's a close up, you see one person's face and then half of another person's face. So you have too many close in shots where not any one thing is the particular focus the way that it should be. I know there's a couple times when Parker's crying and she's kind of off to the side of the screen, but there's really nothing else that's the focus. But there's a lot more going on in this, not necessarily detail, but there's just other stuff in the shot.
Right.
That doesn't need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And once you notice it, you never stop unseeing it. And it drove me nuts once I saw that. And I get it. Okay, so they're all dangling up 50 feet in the air shooting this. So how about you just shoot every scene multiple times and then stitch them together? Just get the shots you need and then film it again and then get all the other shots and then do it again, get all the shots a third time for the third guy.
Yeah.
That's what I might have done.
This is one movie that definitely, if it was shot now, would have benefited from drone footage.
God, yeah.
They could have done a lot more with this movie. Just given that the way they did it with no CGI, it's all just them on a mountain just shooting it, which I admire that they did that.
I admired the hell out of that. As somebody who's sick to death of CGI, I give them, 2 thumbs up for that. They just should have composed those shots better.
Yeah.
As far as the quality of the film itself,
Mm-hmm.
They had good lighting. They had good, it had a good tone, I guess, good color palette to everything. If that makes sense. Just, it was pretty where it needed to be.
Yeah.
But they did not take advantage of the scenery enough.
No. I mean, they had a lot of shots of just, up the mountain and down the mountain and whatever.
Yeah, there's just weren't a couple of nice big establishing. Here's the thing: I've been spoiled from all the Norwegian films where they really just showcase the wildlife and the beauty of their country, and this was. I mean, okay, so they do try to portray that this is set in New England, but it's filmed in Utah. So maybe that's one reason why they didn't, go too far out there with the scenery. But it just because there was a early,
I think
so like because the morning of the second day, you see the 2 that are left in that ski lift, and you see some of the mountains and the beauty around them, and it's just kind of thrown aside.
I think part of that too is they're trying to keep it almost claustrophobic, where you're in that one spot and you're stuck with them. So I think that may have been an intentional decision, but
sure,
yeah.
Once they're on the ski lift, I get it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, like in the run up to that instead of just having these 3 idiots talk at the beginning and not caring,
Right.
like moments like that would have been a great time for some of those nice establishing shots.
Yeah.
Because you only need 1 or 2 and that's it.
You could have got a better feel for the mountain too, like how things were shaped, where they were.
Oh, absolutely. It would have provided some more context. Because in that scene on this morning of the second day, when you see just a little bit of what's around him, you kind of realize that you never really got to see it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
Because seeing
Also,
it would have made it more real in that sense.
Also, the spot where they stopped the first day was the exact same spot they stopped at night.
Oh, yeah?
Like when they got stopped going up during the day when everyone was around, was the exact same spot. The chairlifts were in the same position, same, because that's where they filmed it all, was right there.
Yeah.
But it was distracting to me just because I'm like, all right, it's the exact same spot.
A little too much coincidence on that one.
But I get it. That's where they set up to film.
Yeah, but again, we didn't even need that scene either. I mean, it was a nice little teaser to be like, ooh, when's it going to happen?
Yeah.
Personally, I was kind of rooting for it to just stop during the day and let all hell break loose and have, 100 people stuck on ski lifts trying to figure something out.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting too.
That's a different movie.
That's a different movie.
May have been a better movie.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying we could have had that, or we could have had a movie where we spend the bulk of 90 minutes looking at a couple people talking in a ski lift.
That is what we had.
Which is what we have, because make no mistake, regardless of what the film is about, regardless of the grisly body horror that's in this, essentially, you're watching a series of monologues in a ski lift.
Yeah. And I mean, if that's what you're into, good for you. I'm definitely not. This is not. I did not get into this movie as much as you did, for sure. Because I just couldn't. Like, even the parts where it was, like, uncomfortable to watch the things that were happening, I still just wasn't into it enough to really care. Like, when she peeled her hand off the thing, it didn't really affect me the same way it affected you. But I think I had already just kind of checked out.
Oh, you definitely have. You were half slumped over in your seat most of the night. Not that I blame you.
Yeah.
But
Like it didn't suck me in.
Yeah.
Because all I could think of is how they were just dangling there, and that was all that I was going to see this whole movie.
I really found myself wondering how the hell are they going to get out of that? And when the first guy got eaten by wolves, I'm like, oh, maybe they won't.
Yeah.
And I consider that a very real possibility. I did kind of call it early on, though, that the girl was actually going to make it out.
Yeah. I mean, that was the lazy choice, too.
That was a lazy choice.
I'm just saying the brave, bold choice would have had to have them all die.
That would have been the brave, bold choice. And also, just the one death wouldn't have seemed satisfying enough. But that could have been another choice that they could have made as well.
Like, especially the way that it happened when she got discovered at the end, that she threw herself down into the road. Like, come on now. She could have just gotten run over, and that could have been the end of the movie.
That would have been a great ending, too. And I was almost rooting for that. Just, give us something we haven't seen before. If you're going to make just a bleak, awful film, just go all the way.
Yeah.
Just go all the way. Fuck me up, fam. Let her make it to the end and then get run over.
I mean, at the end, it's like,
oh, we're just going to take you and you're going to be in the hospital. You're going to be okay. And
everything's fine.
She hears the voice of her dead boyfriend telling her she's going to be okay. Which is just to remind you that, oh, yeah, there was some other dipshit in the film who died earlier. It's like, because by that point, I'd completely forgotten about him.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's because he was kind of a jerk, and he was gone pretty early.
Indeed.
So, is there anything else to say about this movie? I mean...
So, with all these things in mind, does this film meet our 3 primary criteria, Ken?
Well, the first one, is it well written? I would say it is 45% well written.
I would give it 65%, to be honest.
I'm just saying, like, 45% is solid. Maybe that next 20% up to 60% is like okay. But I don't think it's quite that far solid.
Well, so I argue for better than half, because while that opening scene was weak,
yeah,
some of the other little exchanges that they have in the first act of the film are pretty weak. It really does get better as the film progresses.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes very believable.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes more believable as it goes on. The way that they talk to each other, the way that they react, what their actual choices are.
Yeah.
It does seem a little bit lazy to just have the wolves be a constant threat. Because you would think in a place, in a busy-ass ski lift, even if it's abandoned 5 days a week, you would think that human presence has been there enough to scare wolves off.
Yeah.
I would think.
But they wouldn't just be hunting there in a pack.
They wouldn't just be hunting there in a pack. But you never, I don't know.
It's possible.
I don't work for a forestry. I don't work for the Department of the Interior.
Yeah. I mean, I could see what you mean, as far as they do have some decent conversations. The way they relate to each other isn't out of the, question. They try to focus on like the better times and like talk about hypotheticals and stuff like that, just to kind of distract them from what's going on. It's not terrible. I just was sick of it by the time it got okay. That's all. So
like I said, so like where I really feel like that 35-40% of it sucks is that first act.
Yeah.
That brings everything down.
For sure.
Because they never really recover from that. If that first act had been better written, it would have sold the whole rest of the film that much more.
Yeah.
So that really is what tanks this film. Because honestly, the parts of the ski lift are interesting to me. Especially as somebody who doesn't particularly like heights, as somebody who doesn't particularly like ski lifts, and neither do you. It is kind of an exploration of what a nightmare scenario would be in that situation. And I think that's really done pretty well, and it's done believably. And maybe their low budget and everything else had a lot to do with that, I'm sure. But I really feel that the writing is pretty strong in the last 2/3. Is it excellent? No.
Yeah.
But it's strong. It's strong enough that I don't feel like I completely wasted 90 minutes of my time. If nothing else, I certainly have given a lot more thought to what I would do in such a situation in the future, Ken.
Yeah, which is probably none of the things they did.
Oh, absolutely. So for well written, I mean 50-50.
Yeah.
It's a wash. It's not terribly written and it's not well written.
Okay.
It's just it was written.
It was written.
It was written. Okay, so it doesn't meet that criteria. Was it well acted?
I think it was decently acted. Yeah.
I think it was decently acted as well.
You spend a lot of time with just those three people. They're all pulling their weight. Even though they were being kind of jerks, that's what their characters were. So they did good at that, I guess.
And they do become more likable as their situation grows more grim.
Mm-hmm.
Because none of them, they all rise to the occasion in some form. Dan makes the sacrifice to try to jump down and get help. And, while foolhardy, it was very noble of him to do.
Yeah, they all have very small character arcs.
They do.
It's not big arcs, but they all have a little bit of development.
For a couple of days of being stuck on a ski lift, that could be, that's the proper amount of character arc you should have.
And there was even like little things too. Like I noticed like Joe was complaining earlier about snowboarding. He's like he wouldn't give up his skis, but then he had to use the snowboard to like save his life. There's like little things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they did good with what they had, for sure. Especially given the fact that they were just hanging up in the air apparently for days, like actually filming this movie. Yeah, kudos on that.
Yeah, seriously.
And actually acting while they're up there.
So I'm definitely going to give it to them. It's well acted.
Yeah.
Is it well produced, Ken?
Somewhat.
I'm at an almost.
Yeah, somewhat.
Almost.
They do have a good location. They do have a lot of good shots. But then there's all the bad stuff.
There's just so much more they could have done.
Yeah.
They really should have fixed some of those close-up shots.
Mm-hmm.
They should have given us more establishing shots. We could have seen at least maybe one other location.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we just didn't see enough of anything beyond the ski lift.
And that's what I feel like too was another wasted thing is they could have used, maybe there was something up at the top of the hill they thought they could use. Like they just needed more, like their only options were jump and and go hand over to the thing. Because that's the only things they could do is just fall. Like they should have given them another.
Yeah, it does feel like there should have been another avenue to explore.
Yeah. Like maybe there was a tree that seemed like it was just close enough or, that they like knocked a limb off of or something. I don't know.
I can't say what's missing from the production, but something's definitely missing.
Yeah.
It needed that magic little spark that's just not in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that fair to rate the film's production for missing that?
Well, the production, the main thing is the bad shots. There's one shot where the third character is just blurry and out of focus while she's talking. The ones I mentioned earlier where they're just drifting back and forth between people, but not fast enough to actually catch up to their reactions. We're actually like in the middle between two people. We can see barely half their faces. Like that's inexcusable. Even in a movie like this where it's supposed to be just, up on a mountain or whatever, like those need to go. They need to do redo on those.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with you on that one.
I mean, sound editing was good.
The sound editing was great.
Editing for stuff that was out of focus was good.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole thing with the movie is you watch it.
Yeah.
You can be deaf and still watch a movie.
I think overall it just suffered from them not able to. They needed a way to better film them up on that thing.
They just needed
without just hanging off it. They needed like one of the cherry picker things or like something where they get more people up there.
They needed more deliberate shots.
Yeah.
They really needed to. It seems like they didn't decide in advance what shots they were going to get for those close-ups.
Yeah.
And they just kind of filmed and then just took whatever they had after the fact.
Agreed.
So I really think they needed to take more close-up shots of each person, and maybe a couple of all three of them. They, from especially from the side. Yeah. All right. So it was fairly well written. It was reasonably acted and produced. So I think
It's a straight middle of the line movie. Was it terrible? No, it was not terrible. It was not awful. We've seen movies way worse than this.
this was an okay movie. This was an okay movie,
But
but it
they
has
needed to spice it up a little.
it needed a little bit
Because the parts where we were just hanging around and just talking.
yeah.
Oh my God.
I was definitely hoping for a little more action for sure.
I was thinking about paint drying, and it didn't seem so bad. Like if it was paint I liked. I'm just saying.
I don't think the movie's that bad, Ken.
Some of those parts were just dragged on and on.
Which is funny because it's only a 90-minute film.
Yeah. It's like I knew what I was getting. We're just out in the wilderness hanging around. So, whatever. It is what it is.
It's a talkie.
It's just not for me.
So, yeah, I guess we can't really recommend the film, but I'll say this.
I certainly don't. I know we feel a little differently about it. So, I do not recommend this movie.
This is the kind of film that I would never watch it again. But if you're at home and you're just flipping through the free YouTube movies and just happen to see it on there are worse ways to spend 90 minutes.
This would be a good movie to watch if you were in a ski lodge and you wanted to watch something get a little spooked. Like if you're on location on a mountain somewhere, that might be a better use of your time.
I like
Sitting
that.
in Florida thinking about snowy slope,
It doesn't, yeah.
didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, but I mean, I grew up with snow and I hate snow, so I kind of feel you.
Yeah.
I still, and I think that's why some of those, the scenes, like when the skin comes off the hand. I remember, when I first moved to the Northwest as a kid, and we had snow everywhere and giant icicles, and I froze my ass off that first winter. Definitely those kinds of things came to mind. So it just kind of hit me a little different, I guess.
Yeah.
But does that mean that this is a film you should see? Probably not. But, it's not going to kill you to watch it. Isn't that high praise?
You heard it first here.
It won't kill you to watch it. But it will kill 90 minutes.
So that's a wrap for tonight's episode here at the O&M Stockroom. We are your host, Ken O'Malley.
And Brian McGarry.
If you enjoyed this segment of Complimentary Cinema, more episodes can be found at omstockroom.com, along with our Patreon page and various streaming outlets. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next Wednesday with an all-new episode. And we won't be frozen.
No.
Or will we?
Oh, and I just want to add, as an addendum, nobody really freezes in this film.
No, that's true. No one is frozen.
No one ever actually freezes. So
except after they've already died.
Except after and even then, you know what? Big thumbs down for this one.
You heard it here.
The title is a lie.
Nobody